Hello, this is Ms. Girot, and I just wanted to talk to you about Art Project 2. And this is where you're going to be doing two paintings. One of them is going to be a realism painting, and one of them is going to be an impressionism painting. These are really good examples. Objectives. You're going to set up a still life and paint the same subject in two different styles. The first style will be naturalism or realism. You're going to use natural tones, try to get realistic 3D blending, smooth brush strokes. And then the next style will be an impressionistic type style, bright colors, shapes, thick, expressive brush strokes, trying to convey more your emotion, evoking an emotional response. Remember to fill the entire canvas, okay? The negative space, the area surrounding the subject, is just as important as the positive space, which is the subject. So you're going to set your still life up with the light coming from one side, just like you did with your Baroque bust when you did your chiaroscuro drawing. You want to set up some interesting lighting so you have some cast shadows, some deep shadows, some bright highlights. Make sure that you have a horizon line. And when you photograph your final painting, make sure that you photograph it square and not at an angle, and crop it so that we don't see the edges. Now you can use any paper to paint with, and the videos that are in the folder for this unit are going to walk you through all of the steps of getting prepared, just like I did with your first project. To prepare for this project, I want you to open the Week 4 folder and watch the Unit 3 Art History videos, okay? You can increase the speed on those because they're YouTube videos so that you can get through that content quicker. And you can also just play it on your phone, put your earbuds in, listen to it as you're going for a walk, but immerse yourself in the period of history in which realism came to birth, and impressionism and post-impressionism. It's a very interesting period in history, one that I think that you would identify with. So just wanted to take a quicker look at naturalism and realism. And naturalism, you know, it's depicting reality as it is, using natural tones, painting nature for the sake of nature, landscapes, genre paintings could be considered naturalism. Those were just paintings of everyday life scenes. And then realism was the beginning of modern art. This is where artists started to challenge social injustices. They brought to light the severe issues of poverty, and it was a window into the real world. Now, these two paintings might just seem like ordinary paintings, like genre paintings, right? But they're depicting the poverty. These women are gleaners. They live in poverty, and they spend the entire day breaking their backs to pick up little pieces of grain that may have been left in the soil after the rich plantation owners, workers have come through and harvested the fields. And then we have stone breakers. And this is once again showing the back-breaking labor of poor people, just the reality of it. We don't see their faces, they're anonymous, but they could represent anyone who has to live this type of lifestyle. The thing to know overall when you go to do your painting is just the use of the natural tones and painting life as it really appears. The Impressionists were interested in capturing light. They were interested in capturing a fleeting moment before it disappeared. They used a lot of thick paint, a technique called impasto, and with tubed paint, they could take their paint outside and they painted en plein air, or in plain air, outdoors. Painters like Monet would paint the exact same scene over and over and over again at different times of the day and under different weather conditions to paint the way that the light impacted nature. Post-Impressionists, they weren't just interested in capturing the moment simply as they observed it. They wanted to capture the emotion that they felt. They used vivid colors, shapes, this technique of pointillism, and they were leaning toward abstract. So you've probably seen these paintings before. They are post-impressionism paintings. So back to the assignment and your objectives. Here's an example of a student naturalism realism painting of a bowl. That was their still life. They put a bowl on the table. You can see the horizon line that I talked about. They painted the cast shadow. They painted the highlights. They painted the colors and the different tones just the way they saw it. So set up your still life, draw what you see, study the shadows and highlights as you did with that drawing of chiaroscuro. Make sure you have a horizon line, capture those cast shadows, blend your colors on your palette, use smooth brush strokes, and create natural realistic colors. The Impressionism piece, here's the bowl. Now the artist is using color, shape, texture to capture an impression of the subject, to evoke an emotional response, and it's approaching abstract. Let's go back to that sunglass example. You can see that the artist set those glasses on the surface, and the artist painted what they saw, including being able to see through those lenses using a natural color palette, those cast shadows on the table, the horizon line. This is a great example of naturalism. And then boom, they get crazy and use color and shape and vivid brush strokes to create an emotional response, an experience. Here's an example of a student who did a still life and painted it as realistic and naturally as they had seen it. And then they used pointillism to paint an impression. Here's a student that loves music, and on the left they have their naturalism piece. Now, just to point out, this student could have done some tighter cropping, okay? We don't want to see the edge of the table. And then this is their Impressionism piece. You can see the more vivid brush strokes, the brighter colors. Here's a great example. This is the subject matter, the naturalism, and the Impressionism. You could even do sports. A bouquet of flowers. A Pepsi. The thing that's missing out of this painting right here, and there was one back there, is the horizon line. This Pepsi is not sitting on a table. We don't see any cast shadows, so that's something that you need to be thinking about. You don't want your subject just to be hovering and elevated in the air. That's not natural. This is a fantastic example of a student who painted things as they saw them, and then this whimsical, colorful, emotional version. Now this one, although it does a really good job and it is just exquisite, I'm not sure that the student actually sat and drew a snail. So I do want you to pick something that you can see and study the way the light interacts with it, the way that the shadows are cast. So please do something that you actually see in front of you. And this is another example. It is absolutely exquisite, but the student obviously probably didn't have someone standing in front of them like this. They probably painted that from their imagination. I don't have any regrets about that. It turned out incredible. But I would like you to paint something that you actually see in front of you. Same thing with the kitty cat. Great example, you know, of this being the naturalism and this being the impressionism. But if you could, please have that subject sitting right in front of you. I don't think this really happened in the students. It's obvious, a great example, but it's from the imagination. So try to resist the urge to do something from your imagination. Make sure that it's something in front of you. This may have been in front of them, but notice they left the entire negative space of the painting bare, and you need to fill your entire painting with paint. If that means you need to trim your paper down so that you can fill all of the space, that's fine, but your negative space needs to be painted as well as your positive space or your subject. Make sure that you are cropping, okay? And this is another example of something in someone's imagination. So don't do that, but also make sure that you crop your work too. And always rotate your artwork. If it's sideways for you, it's going to be sideways for me too. They did also photograph this at an angle, so there's no way that they could even get a decent cropping of this. So make sure you don't photograph at an angle either. And make sure that you really can tell the difference between the two. Like, Really, honestly, these paintings are almost identical to me, and the subject matter is kind of boring. There's not really anything happening, so I need you to, dig a little deeper. Find an object that's interesting, set it on the table, or a group of objects. Remember to only submit JPEG files in this class. I had some students that submitted PDFs and Word documents last time. If I get a PDF or Word document, again, I'm just going to reject it, okay? You need to submit JPEG files. All right, and make sure that you name your file with your first and last name. I do show you how to do all of those things in the video, so if you're telling me that you don't know how to get your picture on the computer or you don't know how to name it, that tells me you're not watching my videos. If you have any questions, give me a call or text me or email me. That is my phone number. Program it in your phone. I am always thrilled when students reach out with their questions. I like to help.